So today on Simply Happy Conversations, I have Beck from 0 Point Yoga. She is based here in the Bellarine Peninsula, and she also has online as well as in-person classes. So thanks, Beck. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for joining me. So maybe we'll start and you can chat about yourself and what you like to do in your free time.
Free time is an interesting.
I don't think you have any, but the little bit of free time. Maybe you actually move some of your work into your free time. It's a bit of both, is it?
Well, I think I've been really lucky to be able to cultivate this life at the moment where work doesn't feel like work. So I have quite a heart-led business with yoga studios, and I have two little kids that are just the most joyful creatures. I guess my most enjoyable thing to do is hang out with my kids. My son is 2, my daughter is 6, so they're at such curious, joyful, expressive ages. So I like to see the world through their eyes and play with them. And then I don't know. My other thing is work. 0 Point. I love 0 Point. I love going to work. I literally don't have a day where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to go in today. Like I am 5 years in, I haven't had that yet.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I feel really lucky. So in terms of, I don't have blocks of time that are free because it's pretty busy with 2 studios and 2 kids, but I don't feel like I'm lacking the downtime or the playtime or the joy time. I think it's just woven as a continuous thread through my life at the moment, which is a pretty nice place to be.
Yeah, it's a perfect place to be. What are the kids? Do they have favorite things that they like to do?
My daughter is incredibly artistic. She's a real creative little soul. She's dreamy and imaginative and gentle. And my son is a little bulldozer. So he's really physical. Any kind of physical play he's into, anything that's loud and wild. So they're like a beautiful contrast to
Yeah.
each other. We had this funny comment made by a family member that was just meeting like a distant family member. She lives in Italy, and we're down in Tasmania for Christmas, and the water temperature I think was like 12, so like freezing.
It's already cold
And
enough here, isn't
I
it?
know my son gets naked and he just charges into it, and my daughter's like tiptoeing across the sand really delicately, and one of the cousin just looked and she said, wow, between them you've got like a normal person.
The yin and the yang, haven't you really? Oh,
They're
yes.
so extremely different. And I guess like all kids are when you're watching them so closely, they seem really polarized. But yeah, so Gabe, anything physical, like
Yeah.
he'll love riding bikes, wrestling, dancing, like big play tests, playing with the ball. And Aurelia is like drawing, creating stories,
Yeah.
storytelling. So yeah, I got a nice balance there.
You have. That's so funny. It reminded me of my kids, which are like the other end teenagers, but they're the same. They're like yin and yang, but it would be the girl, my daughter's the creative one, but she'd be the one running into the surf, not naked, but
Uh-huh.
at 12, at 14, but she would be the first in the water, whereas my son hesitant about water when it comes to water. But yes, he's the
Interesting.
active, sporty, yes, into everything. Where especially at a 2-year-old, you're just taking me all the way back saying those things.
So fun. He's so fun. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
he's just a little like ball of joy in my life.
Yeah, they are. That is
Yeah.
the most beautiful age. Prep. Is she in prep as well?
She's in grade 1.
Oh, grade 1, yes. It's
Yeah.
and you see such a big development in that first year of school, don't you?
I was unprepared
Yeah.
for my own emotions around it, really unprepared. Um, like the wonder at watching her like develop into her own little person, but also like the grief in it.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's and watching the little friendships develop and navigating that, like they're kind of complex social systems at 6.
Mm,
Watching all of that play out is beautiful,
yeah.
and curious. Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Wait, the next one's going into high school is when you get that same like
Ugh.
curious, and that next jump I find is that huge jump again, and that social settings and working out and navigating, and it brings back some of that stuff from your own childhood really,
Yeah, of course, right?
but to another
Yeah,
level with social media mixed in there and everything else that they have to cope with
it's
in
a lot to
with
navigate.
around. Yeah. So then tell us about yoga. How did you get into yoga?
Oh, it's the most unglamorous story you've ever heard. I got into yoga through a really trashy Queensland newspaper called the Courier Mail,
Oh yeah.
and they had a CD of yoga attached to the front of it, and I put it on, and that was it. Like it's not an interesting story. I just got curious. I'd been doing martial arts my entire life. My dad's a martial arts teacher, and I think there's sort of like the common thread through yoga and martial arts of like that discipline and the turning inwards and the self-mastery. So I think that I found that immediately in yoga that started resonating. I'm like, oh, this thread to martial arts that I love
Mm,
is right here, but there's like a gentleness to it, and I can do it alone. Whereas, of course, martial arts you can do alone. You can practice your patterns and things. Um, but I think it had a lot more structure around it, like showing up to the dojo at this particular time,
yeah.
and then I just found yoga. I was just doing it in my bedroom whenever I felt like it, and I was like, oh, there's like a freedom and a discipline, and I loved like both of them immediately. I was like, there's something here, but it took me years before I actually set foot in a yoga studio. I was a bit too nervous to go in, and accidentally wandered into what I thought was going to be a yoga class. So I'd started doing yoga at a gym,
Yeah.
which is why like I will just never ever ever get on that train that's just like yoga at the gym isn't real yoga. Like I never will, because I'm like, you meet people where they're at, and yoga's
Mm,
so good at doing that. And so yeah, I went to yoga at the gym for a while, and then I went to a place called the Australian School of Yoga and Meditation, which is in West End of Brisbane. And I thought I was going into a yoga class. Here's my ego, right? Like I read the schedule and it says kirtan, and I'm like, that must be a yoga class. And I walked into a kirtan. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like chanting, like call and
yeah.
response devotional singing. And I went in having no idea what was about to happen. And they started the singing. Someone handed me a sheet of paper with Sanskrit on it. And something in my heart just cracked open. And much to my horror, I was like crying, and just something just
Yeah.
changed in me in that. And I was like, whoa, I don't even know what's happening. And then I was in like hook,
Yeah.
line, and sinker.
But so there is, you said, oh, it's not an interesting, that is an interesting story, because it is
Yeah.
that the way into it. And it, a lot of people, I hear the same thing. It's the gym. And for me, it was the same. It was a gym in London that I was introduced to yoga and went, oh my God, I want more. I want more, until
Mm.
like, you know, came back to Australia and it was like, I need to go to a yoga studio and, you know, then have my gym separate. But yeah, I think it's a great place for people to be introduced to yoga and get that feel, and then go, oh, actually, maybe I will venture into a yoga studio now as well, because it could be uh, intimidating to people to go into a yoga
Oh,
studio, isn't it? Yeah.
yoga studios are terrifying until you're in them. Then they're the most beautiful
Yeah.
places ever.
Yeah.
But
And
from the
then you just love it.
outside,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And even going to a different yoga studio, you're a bit hesitant. Oh no, what are
Totally.
they going to? What's their protocol? How do they work? Do they have bolsters there? Is it all set up? It's all the routines, isn't it, and the expectations?
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
like, am I going to have to chant in Sanskrit? And do
yeah,
I need to close my eyes? And what are the rules? Like, even me, as someone who owns two yoga studios, still get like mildly apprehensive going into a new studio. I'm like, am I
yeah,
doing it right? I
yeah.
don't know.
So, what would be your advice to someone who's thinking about going to a yoga studio who's never been before?
We have at 0 point, because like my advice would be just come in, but that's
Yeah,
like probably not useful, right? And it maybe dismisses the barriers that people perceive to coming into yoga studio. So we do something called the open house, where once a week we open up the studio. There's no class running, and the studio is just open, so you can come and have a look and have a feel. And then someone's in there, and they can be like, hey, when you come in, you put your shoes here. And then you go and get a mat and you roll it out facing that way. And the teacher's going to teach from there. And so just I would say come into one of those
that's
when
amazing.
it's not the class time, when it's not like full of people that know what they're doing, and you can come in and you can ask all the, in inverted commas, the dumbest questions you have.
Mm,
Because sometimes people are like, I just didn't know where to put my shoes, or
mm,
I just don't know if I'm allowed to walk over there. Because there's that kind of almost reverent, sacred kind of feeling to a yoga
yes.
studio. And so we just like make it super, like take down those barriers, like come in when no one's there, and we'll talk you through. You'll say like you'll come in here, and then someone will be standing over there with an iPad, and you tell them your name, and they'll tick you off, and then you can put your shoes here, and step it through so it
Yes.
becomes and people are just like, oh yeah, I can actually do all of this. That's fine. And take away that bulk of the anxiety for that first class. Like once you come to one, you're fine.
Yeah,
And
no, it's just that first class, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and my happiest thing is when people come in, I've lost count of how many people have said this, but like obviously yoga has like a branding issue where people think everyone's just like skinny and in lycra and like going to be doing handstands and the splits, and the joyous relief on people's faces when they come in and just look around and be like, okay, wow, it looks like the kind of the cross section of people you'd see in the supermarket here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a tradie, there's a really, really elderly lady over there.
Yes.
Oh, look, that looks like someone who's in their tween years.
Yeah.
There's a much bigger body, there's a much smaller body. Hey, look, there's someone on crutches. Like,
Yes.
and all of that just dissolves away. And I think that's a big relief to people.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. That open house, being neurodivergent as well makes me go, oh my gosh, that's like that barrier broken down to go and observe and have a look first, and then just to be comfortable to go to an actual class. That's a beautiful thing to be offering. And definitely more studios should be taking that up and doing it as well. So then tell me about then 0 Point. How did that start and how many years? Is it 6 years that it's been going? Is it longer?
No, it's 5 years,
5
I think.
years, 5 years, yeah.
um, I started teaching little classes in my garage, just in my little tiny garage, my little tiny house. And basically because no one would hire me.
Yeah.
So I tried to be a yoga teacher, and I didn't get any response for any of the studios. And I really wanted to teach. So I was like, oh well, I'll just start teaching my garage. And thankfully people came along, and then I outgrew the garage and we moved to the park. But then obviously like down here, there's like a couple of days a year where that's going to work out for you.
Yes,
Um,
the weather's so unpredictable, isn't it?
um, I don't know. And then I just got really just had this like moment of boldness. And I'm like, I just opened a studio. I've literally never worked in a studio ever in my life, ever. Never been employed by a studio. Don't know how they run, but I'm like, I'm just going to do it. So yeah, I rented a shed, and 0 Point was born, and the beautiful people of Ocean Grove were really receptive. Like the community was amazing. And it just blows my mind actually, because 0 Point, like Ocean Grove, it's a shed. It really is. But like the amount of magic that happens in there, makes me just so awed with the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, 0 Point, it started in a garage, it moved to a shed.
But now you have two as well, though. You have two
Yeah, so now we've got
studios.
Drysdale as
So,
well,
yeah.
which has been this beautiful adventure getting to know the Drysdale community. And again, just amazing to see, like obviously like you put in effort to creating the space and making it look pretty, but the community that
Mm.
builds is the thing that gets me, like that really drives me, like just watching all these connections form, these little social webs start to build. And I mean, what's more important than that? Like literally people come in and leave with friends and people to rely on and a network.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah. And I love like where we're very fortunate in Geelong that the yoga teachers travel to your studio, Torquay, Geelong, and you get to experience them. And for me, it's like that's what makes me go to a different studio just to try out because of the yoga teachers. So we've got a really great variety of yoga teachers here in our area that move around, don't we?
I'm blown away by the caliber of teachers
Yeah.
here. I mean, yeah, just yeah, and their willingness to travel. I mean, from Jan Jack to Ocean Grove or to Drysdale for a class, like that is
Yeah.
huge. And they do it and then they show up so beautifully. Like I couldn't be more in love with the staff. They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have it online for people anywhere else in the world that wanted to access?
We do. We have it's called On Demand, and it's an online library. So um, classes for anywhere, anytime. We've got classes that are like 5 minutes long, to, hour-long classes, all the different class types. And you just, punch it in when you're ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about some of the other things, because it's not just yoga that you have. You have a real variety of things going on at 0.2. Lots of trainings.
Uh, yes, we do teacher trainings, which are just like such a privilege, an amazing journey to go on. We do like classes, we have Pilates bar, we do sound bath meditation, as well as like different yogas. But then I guess the other main bit of the business, or the offerings, is events. We run a ridiculous amount of events.
Yep,
Um,
heaps.
Lots and lots of events. I think it was like 93 events last year. So like a huge amount, like more than one a week most weeks. And um it's intentional because I always loved, if you go to Bali or somewhere, and you can look at the real yoga hubs and be like, okay, any night of the week there's going to be something amazing on. I kind of want that, like, and lots of different offerings. So like from breath work to like a menopause workshop to, um, paint and sip to ecstatic dance. There's something for
Yeah, there's
everyone,
something for
really,
everyone.
hopefully. And also a place, because what I found after a couple of years of running a studio, I'm like, this is interesting because the teachers are so skilled and they
Mm,
have so much knowledge, but they get 45 minutes or an hour to display that. And yoga teaching, while it's like it does really like blossom the heart and it is fulfilling in that way, it's kind of dead end because the next step up from teaching classes is teacher training, which is
mm,
monstrous, or run a studio, which is a totally different skill set. Like that's a business skill
yeah,
set rather than the yoga kind of skill set. So facilitating all of the events was like, let's let our teachers shine with all, like, they're so amazing, they're so knowledgeable, and let's make the career have another step
yeah.
rather than just plateauing at studio classes over and over and over. Like, come in and share more, and students can get to know you more deeply. And so I think it benefits everyone, really.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea, because a lot of the yoga teachers that you meet actually do something else outside of teaching. They don't just teach. I mean, the people who do that are amazing, because seriously, being a PE teacher for 20 odd years, it's hard work teaching every day on your feet. It's exhausting. So yeah, teacher having something else as well to rely on, so it's not so physically draining, is great. And then having it all in that spot for people to get to know you. I love that. I love that offering that you have in your spaces. So then how can people have a yoga inspired life? So like,
Mhm.
because to
Mm.
other people who haven't done teacher training, there is more to yoga than just the physical asana. But a lot of people don't hear that side of it, do they? It's not.
Oh, this is
I
literally
love this.
this is the specialty of 0 Point, right?
Yes.
So I'm tantric trained predominantly, and in tantra is the path of, like, the spiritual path, the yoga path for what we call the householders. So the people that have jobs, the people that have relationships, the people that deal with money, the people that have sex, like the people that are engaged in the world. Whereas that more Vedantic path is the renunciates, the people that can go live in an ashram, sit in a cave, sit on a mountain, sit under the tree, whatever it is, and not have to deal with all the messy parts of life. So the tantric training is incorporate this into your day, like make everything sacred, make the way you eat a ritual, make it sacred, make yourself present with your cup of coffee. Um, Talking like truthful communications, one of them, like learning how to speak truthfully and straightforwardly becomes like an act of yoga, like a sacred ability. Having sex, dealing with money, like you do all of it with reverence. Like tantra's like live in the world, engage in all of your senses, but here's some boundaries. Like here's how you do it properly, which is why I love these teachings so much, because they're so practical. So in each week at 0 Point, I'll just share a different one
Mm,
to take home into your life.
yeah, that'd
And
be great.
they're not like deeply spiritual. They're like, here's a practical thing for you to change or you to have try out in your life this week. And the longest meditation we have in Tantra is 26 minutes. So they're not go sit for 3 hours because it's just not realistic. in any way. Most of our classes are 45 minutes because we're like, come every day, we'll get you in and out within an hour. But like, instead of doing 1 75-minute class a week or
Mm,
something, we're like, the benefits are when it's woven into your life as a non-negotiable, rather than like one big event here and then you fall back into, you know, whatever the systems are. So yeah, like learning like Tantra, and Tantra's got obviously the reputation that it's got, and we all think it's just about sex, and it's really not at all. It's about how to live in the world in a mindful, spiritual, connected way. Tantra, its core is relationship. Like, how do we relate to others? Because that's where the growth is. And anyone, I think, that's been in a long-term relationship knows that that's where your growth is. That's where you're going to see your shadow stuff. That's when your triggers are going to be pushed. Like, Tantra's like learn to relate with others rather than bypassing it. So these are the kind of things we teach at 0 Point, even though it sounds really spiritual from the outside. They're getting like practical, like, here's how to have a truthful communication. Here's how to feel a feeling. Here's how to make a ritual with your coffee, these kind of things, and weaving it into our day. Like, you can live a life with lots of money and a
mm.
family and a job and a fancy car, and like you can, and it be like a deeply connected and spiritual life. You don't have to renounce and go and wear an orange robe and live. Like, nothing wrong with it. Like, but you just don't have to. There is another way, which is basically the premise of 0 Point. We're like, let's show you this other way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's my favorite part about yoga is that woven little bits, tips that are just woven through the class throughout, to take away, to ponder there, or take away and think about as well. And it's interesting teaching in a gym, and I just wove a little bit in the other week, and one of the ladies came up and said, "Oh, that was so good. That's just that slightly different thing than being in here in the gym and in a gym class." I'm like, yeah, it's about wisdom, sharing some wisdom and taking
Mm-hmm.
something small away into your life. Yeah, which, is about yoga, and part of the yoga. It's not just that asana, isn't it?
I love it. And I think we shouldn't underestimate people. Like, I always got told in teacher training, some of the early ones I did, like, leave the philosophy out of it, just teach the asana. And um I think, like, don't underestimate people. People are deep,
Mm.
and people are thinking, and people are open. And I've certainly found that to be the case. Like, I'll share all sorts of stuff in my classes, and the reception is always incredible. And yeah, just treating people like they're capable of more than just stretching.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
yeah,
And they're open to accepting some bit of wisdom that you're going to share with them as well.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what it is, isn't it? It's the more connected to them, the actual teacher, by having those little tidbits, or even just a little bit of your life that you've shared, makes them want to come back for more.
Yeah. Like, if you can touch something in people or get them to think about their own experience, like,
Mm.
that's more yoga than the splits. Um,
Yeah. Or a handstand. Yeah,
or a
definitely.
handstand. Yeah.
Yeah. So how, Beck, can people connect with you online or on social media? And I know that you actually maybe share both if you're happy to, your social media links as well. I will put them in the show notes though as well.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, we have On Demand, which is the online library. There's a 7-day free trial for anyone. So that's just through the 0 Point website, which is 0pointyoga.net. Um, and then there's the 0 Point Instagram, which is 0 Point Yoga, pretty sure. And then I have a personal Instagram, which is just sharing, like, it's like a brain dump, really, to be honest. Just like popping out thoughts, and a bit about my experience. And that one's alchemy.body, on Instagram.
And I definitely recommend anyone who is a yoga teacher to definitely look at that one, because I found it really inspiring to read some of your thoughts and your brain dumps, as you called them. But I found those really inspiring to even go away and, you know, create around your own class some
Oh,
ideas.
thank you.
So keep sharing, because that was great. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom today.
Oh, it's such a joy to chat to you. Thank you.
Thanks.